As Iran fights against the U.S. and Israel, the two countries to its east are engaged in their own conflict. Pakistan and Afghanistan have been exchanging cross-border strikes, the most recent escalation of violence now stretching into its 8th day. For more on this, let's bring in Ibrahim Bahis, a senior analyst in Afghanistan with the International Crisis Group. Ibrahim, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So you are actually in Afghanistan's capital of Kabul, which is several hours from the border with Pakistan. What impacts have you seen so far?
It's been an eventful week, to say the least. We've seen in the last as you said, this is the 8th day of the conflict now. In the last 7 days, we've seen bombings here inside Kabul city. We've seen anti-aircraft fire being engaged by the Taliban authorities, and we have seen Pakistani airplanes conducting overflights over the city. As you said, mentioned, this is the latest bout of fighting between the two neighbors. But in terms of intensity and longevity, this surpasses anything we have seen previously.
Well, that leads me to my next question, Ibrahim, because we've got on one side of this conflict, we have Pakistan, which has one of the largest militaries in Asia. On the other side, we've got Afghanistan, where the Taliban are well versed in guerrilla warfare. How sustainable is this fighting? I mean, how long could it last realistically?
Unfortunately, I think the fighting could last for a long period of time. As you mentioned, Pakistan has one of the largest militaries in Asia, if not the world, and it has definitely has a competitive advantage over the Taliban, who lack any viable air force and any viable anti-aircraft fire. What we have seen in this fighting is Pakistan playing to its advantage, where it has used airplanes to carry out airstrikes deep inside Afghan territory, targeting weapons depots and military infrastructure. And the Taliban have responded in a way that they have been familiar with in the last 20 years. They have been targeting Pakistani military positions across the disputed border, and often they're relying on night vision goggles and crack troopers that the Taliban used to refer to as suicide fighters, but essentially they're crack troopers who have been trained in using night vision goggles and lasered weaponry, and they're trying to isolate and overrun military checkpoints. In terms of the second part of your question, in terms of the longevity, it's worth recalling that the Taliban fought a 2-decade-long conflict or war with the NATO-led international forces. And Pakistan obviously also has trained for various major war scenarios. So we're not really, in terms of willpower or in terms of capacity, I don't think there is we're seeing any sign of exhaustion on either side. But the key problem is that the more the two sides fight with each other, the more they're degrading capacities of one another and creating an environment conducive for militants to operate in. And it's worth recalling, this is what sparked this latest bout of fighting, right? It was Pakistan's concerns that the TTP, or the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is often referred to as Pakistani Taliban, they operate from sanctuaries inside Afghanistan to attack Pakistan. So the more the two sides are fighting with each other, I would argue the more it's creating a conducive environment for the militant groups such as the Pakistani Taliban to operate in this area.
Now, Ibrahim, as we know, there is an incredible amount of regional instability right now. How is the war between Iran and the U.S. and Israel impacting what we're seeing take place right now between Pakistan and Afghanistan?
I think it's created an unknown factor, a very big unknown factor for both sides. It's worth recalling from Pakistan's side that it has India as one of its major neighbors, with which it has an ongoing rivalry for spanning, since the creation of the nation. Then we have Afghanistan with probably second largest neighbor in terms of the territory the two share. The Afghanistan and Pakistan share a 1,600-mile border. And they're at, as your subline says, they're at open war with each other right now. And then you have Iran as the third largest neighbor. And as you rightly pointed out, that's in a state of flux with the conflict between them and the US and Israel. So Pakistan's essentially surrounded by these unknown factors right now. It has an arch nemesis, and then it has an open war, and then it has an ongoing conflict next door to it. On the Afghan side, also, I think the situation is equally dire. The border between Afghanistan and Pakistan has been closed since last October, when the last round of fighting happened. Any trade and transit other than returnees is essentially closed off. So Afghanistan has been relying on Iran, which is its largest trading partner, for transit access to the Indian Ocean. And now with this conflict going on and the reports we're hearing of, for example, damage to Chabahar port and the closure of Strait of Hormuz, Afghanistan is essentially blocked off from any international trade through the global oceanic routes.
All right, it's a very complex conflict. Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining us today and for your insights. Please stay safe.
Thank you.
That is Ibrahim Bahis with the International Crisis Group.